Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast, number 377, recorded live Wednesday, February 21st in the AM, the year 2018. I am your host and new Olympic curling fan, Todd Clint. If you'd like to talk tech or talk curling or whatever, you can hit me up on Twitter at Todd Clint. Email me Todd at toddclint.com. Instagram, Snapchat, or whatever all that is. I'm here. I'm here for your entertainment. Shane, how could the good folks get a hold of you?
Hi, my name is Shane Young with Bold Zebras. Those guys. And today's show is all about me putting up with Todd's crap for 45 minutes in the name of getting news and tech information out to you guys.
Yes, it has been, I have this thing, I have these two things, these wireless earphones that I really want to use, and my computer conspires against me, and Shane has to watch the battle. It's sad.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts of joining the chat room, though. If you ever want to join the show live just to watch the pre-shenanigans, you'd be like, how do these guys ever get anything done ever? And we don't really know the answer either.
No, that's a good question. If you do want to join the chat room, go to toddclint.com/Slack invite and fill out the thing. Since it's Slack, we have to invite you, but we do. We invite everybody. So do that, and then you can jump in at the hooligans. They like to make fun of me and all that. And the headphones, normally they just don't work. Today they did a new thing. They worked all the way up till we were ready to go live. And then a mere seconds before we were going to, Shane's voice just went away. I thought I'd gone deaf.
He was really excited about that, though. That was very awkward. He's like, I can't hear.
I haven't smiled that big in weeks. So for other production things, we're kind of moving some stuff around. We talked last week about how we're thinking about setting up a Patreon site. So for those of you that watch other podcasts or listen to other podcasts, that's a way for you to donate to a podcast, kind of keep the ads and stuff down. But we have to give you a pound of flesh for that. And we're kind of looking for ideas for that. So we've had a couple people reach out on Twitter with ideas, but if you do Patreon subscriptions for other podcasts and can think of some of the things that they give that you think we'd like to do, give us a shout.
What can we do to get $5 from you? That's what he's really asking.
That is the exact, I was thinking more, $10 or $12, but
We're a big deal. I get it.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, since we've got the blog moved over to the new server, thinking about changing some stuff around for the podcast site, or hell, even my blog, I don't care. So if you've got any ideas on how, what information you'd like to see on either the podcast page or my blog, reach out to me and let me know about that. Mark Crispin's saying, paint my house. That reminds me of a scene from a movie or something. A prostitute comes up to a guy and says, for $50, I'll do anything you can say in 3 words. And he's like, all right, here you go. Paint my house. And so
I'm just imagining us now painting Mark's house, the 80s montage music in the background, then painting, I see the comedy of errors that made those 80 movies so great. I think we fit perfectly in there.
Absolutely. On to the topics, on to all of that. You've got the first topic. Tell me about it.
Oh, I do have it. So one of the things that we've done for a long time, right, is we've used the same PowerShell script to create the search service application in SharePoint 2013, 2016. I think old Spence wrote the first version. You took what he wrote, kind of made it a little more friendly, because Spence is not a friendly guy all the time, one might argue. So you made it a politer version. So I was using that at a customer this week and got about 2/3 of the way through and it blew up. I'm like, this is not cool. I've used this script hundreds, if not thousands of times. So why is this broken? So I looked around for a little bit. I started binging my error. Turned out that the error message was in the comments to your post. And so someone had the same problem and fixed it and told us how to fix it. And so it's essentially in one of the new search service instance commandlets, you need to specify the server name that you want it to run on. So this is a multi-server farm. I'm guessing the script is written only works in a single server farm.
Yes.
So his one little change, we reran that portion of the script and down. Life was grand. So shout out to that person and shout out to your blog comments, which I keep telling you need to get rid of. But man, it saved my bacon this week. So I'm kind of mixed.
Yeah. So yeah, and I fixed that. So the version that's out of my blog is not the version that I use anymore, and that exact thing is the reason. So I think Spence's version and the way that I normally use it, and it's just how I build out my SharePoint farms. I've got my crib notes and all that, and it starts on a single server, and I do some stuff, and then I start adding servers. And so that script, absolutely, like you said, is written to assume one server in the farm. And so when you add a second server, then it gets confused. And I think my personal version of that script has that fix in it.
So you just didn't share with all your fine readers. I see how you are.
Well, and it's funny. So I don't see him in the chat room, but oh my God, I'm blanking. Jeff Hicks has told me that I need to publish my stuff out on GitHub and share some of that stuff more. He's probably right. But those scripts, it's like the one that you've got now, it's just a PS1 file. It's got no error handling. It's just, and I feel like it's irresponsible to share some of those. Plus, like you said, most of it's came from what Spence wrote. But yeah, I should update that one and we'll talk about that. So, Mark, I don't build single server farms so much as I build my multi-server farms all on one server and then add the servers to it at the end.
Yep. So that cuts down a lot of the confusion and chaos.
Yep.
And I can tell you, so good news is with this customer, so we fixed that. But next up on our list is your favorite service application.
User profile service.
No. Power Pivot.
Oh, good God.
I've tried to talk them out of it every way possible, and I just can't do it. So look forward to me spending a month on it, just like you got to spend a month on getting that up and running.
Yeah, there's still one piece of it I haven't conquered, but maybe once you start, working on it again, it'll refresh some of those juices for you, and we can get it figured out.
Oh, I'm so sad.
So another SharePoint-y thing. So I guess note after this call, remind me I need to update that script and do all the stuff with the thing. So in the chat room, Mark is asking irresponsible quickie scripts on GitHub. Have I ever been to there? Yeah. So I go to GitHub all the time. I pull all kinds of things down from GitHub, but I try not to publish anything that is not good. I feel somewhat of responsibility as a person who blogs and writes stuff to put things out there that I can't knowingly put out anything I can't put out anything that I know is wrong, and I can't speak either. Anyway, on to the next topic. So this is a blog post that I read here a couple of days ago by your friend and mine, Bob German. He is back at Microsoft now, and he published a blog post about what is modern SharePoint and why should I care? And I think those are two very common questions. And what is it and why, because I think for you and I, we're used to SharePoint the way that it was, and this modern stuff feels all scary and strange. And so why should we care? And so I think Bob does a really fun job of explaining how SharePoint got to where it is and why it needs to change to these modern sites and modern lists and all that kind of stuff. So the link for that is blogs.microsoft.com. Of course, they're in the show notes, or you can go to toddclint.com/podcast377 and get the link to the article. You should read it all. But basically, Bob makes the argument that as somebody like Shane or I that goes in and installs SharePoint and sets it up, one of the first requests we get is, how can you make this not look like SharePoint? And part of that is because SharePoint has a very utilitarian look about it that is just not friendly. And part of that is because it hasn't really changed much in the last 15 years. And so he brings this up because he's like, the first thing people want is to not look like SharePoint because of all these reasons. Well, once you move to the modern version, it doesn't look like SharePoint. So it's a better look. And he also brings up that interface was designed, in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, and hasn't changed a lot since then. But everything else around the web has. People's expectations of what web pages do have changed. The devices people hit web pages on have changed. The bandwidth they hit it with has changed. The browser, everything has changed, but yet SharePoint still has that general same look that it did 15 years ago. And so this is a way to modernize all of that. And so basically modern pages are the fix to these questions. And why we should care is because, so there's just that whole, it's updated. But he's at the bottom, we've got a list of his top 10 reasons why we should care, which really ends up being 11 reasons. And Bob's a smart guy. I thought he could count. I've never had him count for me, but I figured he could do it. But some of my favorites are, it just looks better. It looks more modern, more current, for lack of a better term, and it does that by filling out the page more, and not having little print all over, and not only is it easier for end users to see things, but it's easier for end users to configure things. So one of the things that I really liked about SharePoint is how easy it was to create functional pages. And that was good for me as a guy who can't program or design or anything like that. But it was also good for me as a SharePoint administrator because I could punt a whole lot of work off onto the users. Be like, this is the whole purpose of SharePoint, is to be able to do this yourself. Guy from accounting, quit calling me. And so this makes it even easier for users to do that, and for non-technical people to make good looking things. It also addresses the fact that SharePoint is now consumed on phones and tablets and big screens and all that. And the pages are now more active and dynamic, and take advantage of those screen sizes. And finally, this is all on Office 365 right now, SharePoint Online. And all of the new cool things are going to SharePoint Online, and they all require modern pages, modern lists and libraries, modern site collections, that kind of stuff. So if you want to keep up and do all the fun things, you're going to have to use these anyway. So I highly recommend it. Bob talks a little bit about how to go out there and create one and play with it a little bit. Just a good article, especially for somebody like me and like you who's a little resistant to these dumb things. They need to get off my lawn. But he makes a good argument for it. And I liked it. He's a good writer. It was fun to read.
Yeah. And the only problem so I got two different tangents I want to go on here. So pick one. So the first one I want to go off on, right, is the problem I have with modern pages. I agree with like his idea, right? We've got to get them, embrace them. I'm 100% on board. I'm doing that with clients today. But they just missed the mark a little bit, right? The big gray banner at the top that takes up the whole, takes up 2/3 of the screen, and you can't adjust, you can't change, you can't modify. It's just there. That really makes people upset, right? It's really very annoying. So I think modern pages still need a little more work from Microsoft, to a little more either flexibility around changing that stuff, or just not have this default setting be so darn intrusive, right?
Yeah.
So struggle with that. But yeah, the customer I'm at this week is a prime example of this, though. So today they're on SharePoint 2010, and probably 2/3 of the sites are actually still in 2007 UI.
Wow.
Yes, it's terrible. But so they're moving to SharePoint 2016 on-prem for reasons we won't get into here, but they know they're going to go to the cloud next year, so in 2019. So I'm trying to help them make good decisions in this migration to get them ready for that, right? And so it's like things like, we're not going to do any more of the stupid SharePoint Designer stuff. We're not going to, have this old look and feel. We need to stop investing in these third-party web parts that are, crutches that aren't going to be, moving forward. And it's been an interesting conversation, and I'm selling them on this idea that we've got to get them to SharePoint. We've got to get this environment good so we easily move to SharePoint Online so they can start to take advantage of things like Power Apps and Power BI and Planner and Scheduler and Forms and all that stuff. So it's been a tough conversation. They get it at the IT level, but the business level, they just want their SharePoint Designer and their 2007 look and feel. And I'm like, this is just not going to cut it anymore.
Yeah, that's they've got a lot of inertia and they're stuck there, and it works. And I feel that from the user side, if the 2007 version works for what they're doing, they just don't see why they need to change it or learn new stuff. I mean, I get all that.
Yeah. The other interesting one, I hadn't had this conversation in a long time, but they had a dedicated SharePoint server for Windows Workflow Manager or whatever, that thing. I'm like, we're not doing that. Well, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it doesn't work. I don't know how else to put it. It just doesn't work. And your users have, SharePoint 2010 workflows today. There is no reason to introduce them to this whole new workflow engine. No, we're just not doing it.
Yeah, I refuse. I'll get myself and leave.
Yeah, exactly. It's me or the workflow server.
Yep, you got to choose. Well, that's good. I think they'll appreciate the tough love down the road. But yeah, so if you haven't played with them a little bit, and there's some chats in the chat room about, the title box, how to adjust that. But yeah, there's some room for improvement. The good news is, since it's in the cloud, potentially they can adjust those things. In the chat room, Dan Christian asked if it's coming to the next on-premises server of SharePoint. We don't know. All we do know is that it is not coming to 2016. That the underlying changes were too great for what they wanted to be able to put in a patch. So it will not come to 2016. Whether it will come to 2019 or not, we don't know. A little foreshadowing. If you have questions like that, a good place to find the answers to those is going to be in Las Vegas here in a couple of months in May at the SharePoint conference. That will have all of the people there that you'll want to ask. So start planning for that. So you've got the next one. You're doing some arm wrestling with the Power Apps and the SQL.
Yeah. So I'm glad Dan's in the chat room, right? You guys don't know Dan does a lot of Power Apps, Power BI stories as well. That space I keep trying to encroach on. But so I sat down last week, probably on Friday. I think it was Friday, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna pop off real quick here a Power App that uses Azure SQL. And thus far, like with Azure SQL, the only thing I'd done is kind of went out there and created a few databases here and there. Right. I love the way that SQL Server Management Studio figures out the firewall issues and all that.
Yep.
Like, this is pretty cool. But then I started playing with it a little deeper, right? Well, I was like, all right, I need to set the permissions on this table. And turns out that Azure SQL is not exactly the same as SQL on-prem when it comes to management. Like, you got to do that with a T-SQL script. I'm like, no. I right-click with the mouse and properties and users, and that's how I do this. So I'm almost say struggling is probably the right word, right? I'm getting it fixed. I'm working through it, but making a database in Azure SQL that I could actually use is turning out to be a little harder than I expected.
Did you figure the permissions thing out?
I mean, I found the T-SQL script to do it, and then I kind of futzed around with it, and I mean, I think so.
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't done a lot with Azure SQL, but if I was in the position that you were in, I would have found an on-prem SQL instance, did the thing in the UI, and then hit the script to query window, and it will give you the T-SQL, and then I would try that T-SQL, massage it as necessary, and try that in Azure. Good. I don't know if that's what you did or not.
You're so smart.
I am, and good looking. I can't get my hair to lay down, but
I decided not to make fun of your hair. I'm feeling kind of nice today.
So, I was trying to preempt it. I was trying to own it, and if I'd have just stayed quiet.
Yeah, I was giving you a pass. But yeah, so it turns out there's some documentation, right? Apparently I wasn't the first person to be frustrated with how difficult Azure SQL was to set permissions and stuff. So Microsoft's like, here, dummies, here's the 20 characters you need to do this. Like, just give me a button and write me a blog post.
So close.
But so
yes, if people want to help Shane.
Yeah, well, so then, and then from Power Apps point of view, so like with Power Apps, if you connect to a SharePoint online data source, or a SharePoint either online or on-prem data source, or an Excel data source, it will build an app for you, right? It'll give you the standard CRUD operations all in a multi-screen app, which is really good because then I can take that and kind of reverse engineer it, and that's how I build actual good apps, by stealing the logic from their basic app.
Sure.
Turns out with Azure SQL, if you build it from that database, you don't get that. You only get the read operations. So you don't get the creates and the updates and deletes. And so it's just another hurdle, I guess. So I've been very frustrated. I'll get it figured out, and I'll end up making a video, how to use Azure SQL for your Power Apps. Dan was a great push on me on Twitter. Like, yes, it's a pain in the butt, but you kind of got to work through it. Because if you're going to build a large scale app, you don't want SharePoint to be the back end. You want to use a database. And I completely agree with him. So I got to get through it. But as much as I've been excited about Power Apps and how easy it was to get started with SharePoint Excel, that is not the case with Azure SQL. So just know that if you're going into it thinking, I'll rank this video in 15 minutes like I do all the other ones. 5 days later, I still don't have it figured out how to do it. So.
Not the case. Well, that's bad news, but the next item is good news, I assume, for you, not so much for me here in Iowa.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I'm one of the list. So we have an article here, 5G, right? So we know that most of the world is on some form of 4G for your mobile phones, right? That's how you get your data. Yeah. There's LTE and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it's all an iteration of the 4 spectrum. And so the 5G platform, AT&T just yesterday announced that they plan to have it in a dozen cities this year. They listed out the first three. I forget, Atlanta was one of them.
Dallas or something.
Yeah, I was going to say Texas City and one other. But so it sounds like 5G, and really the big change with 5G is a better phone call. No one cares about phone calls.
You can make phone calls with that thing? Oh my God, that is awesome.
Yeah, no. So 5G, the idea is they think they can get the data speeds, through the roof, right? Start talking about downloading gigs per second or gigabit per second to your mobile device. So, the goal really is not to make it so you can watch Netflix faster on your phone or play Star Wars on your phone faster. It's the IoT scenarios and those type of things, right? They realize that more and more business is getting done on mobile apps and mobile devices, and those guys being able to get a much faster connection is a big win.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see though. So I haven't done a lot of homework on 5G, but last week in my class at UC, one of the students there had done a bunch of homework on it. And he was telling me really the problem with 5G, it is faster and all that, but because they use a millimeter wavelength, they struggle with, it doesn't work as well in buildings and basements and that type of stuff. And so it'll be interesting to see how does it really go when they start throwing this into somewhere like Atlanta where there is, the concrete jungle and, clearly 5G is great if I'm standing in the front yard taking pictures of my house like a realtor or something, but what happens when you're the guy that lives in his basement like Todd and I do? Is it 5G going to work for us?
Yeah, well, a couple things. So, I mean, we've experienced that already with inside wireless. That 2.4 gigahertz is slower, but it can go through anything. 5 gigahertz is faster, but if you can't see the access point when you're using it, it dies out. So I think that's why houses now, instead of getting bigger access points, they're getting more smaller access points, is because of the 5 gigahertz thing. And I think for guys like us that live in our basement, we'll either continue to use our on-prem internet access over Wi-Fi, or if we decide to move completely to this, we'll have to have some kind of external antenna or some kind of device that transitions between outside and inside.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's going to turn down to, right? We're going to put a lot more repeaters. The old, I forget what that model is, right? But where you got the big towers and the towers are pushing to a bunch of smaller towers, and then that's really where it is. So it becomes more about getting to that one big tower. It's about getting to your local smaller tower, which here in close to me, I've seen Verizon started putting in some of those small mini towers, if you will, right, in like office parks and things like that to try and expand their coverage. Because God bless Verizon, they still have the best coverage going because they invest in stuff. So
no argument there. I'm on AT&T. I've been on AT&T for a while. Happy with them. For the most part, but I do agree that there are places where Verizon's got better coverage. I'm doing a thing at our school on Friday night. It's a big event, science night, and we're using a Square reader to, for people to buy food and all that. And we're not sure if we can use the school Wi-Fi or not. So me and the person who are doing that are kind of, trying to get plan Bs and plan Cs. And I'm like, well, we can tether. I've got a hotspot, but my access isn't always the best inside of the school, but I think we can try that. And she's like, oh, I've never had any problems. I always have great speed. And I'm like, which carrier do you have? And she's like, oh, I'm on Verizon. I'm like, yeah, of course you are. Yeah. So it's a thing.
Yeah, I'm also on AT&T, and I can also tell you inside my kids' school, it's mostly a dead zone for me. I'm like, I'll go spend 8 hours volunteering up there, and I have to stand in one hallway like this if I want to check my email real quick. I mean, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, when our school has Wi-Fi, and I don't know how or when I ever got the code, but my phone jumps on the Wi-Fi at the school. And it's that thing, all the devices share the code in the background. So I entered it on something once, however many years ago, and so I don't even know.
Yeah, but then the school Wi-Fi, if it's like ours, is so locked down, right? I can't get to anything I want to, so...
I've not tried much. I mean, just a little browsing, like, if we're at PTO meetings and somebody's trying to figure something out. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but we'll see. Come Friday, we'll find out.
I can't wait. Why don't you just go up there today and take your tethered or your Square and see if you can get on Square on their wireless?
Well, the other person's got it now. And where it comes down to, without getting into too many things, is so I get on the wireless there all the time.
Yep.
And, my wife does and all that. And so as me and the other person were talking about it, she's like, oh, I was told we couldn't use the wireless at the school. And I'm like, can't use it from a technical aspect or can't use it from a you'll get in trouble aspect. She's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, because I use it all the time. And so that's why I'm like, if we get there and it works, great, we'll be quiet about it. If we get there and it doesn't work, then we'll tether and be quiet about it.
There you go. All right, what do we got next? So it looks like you want to talk about your favorites.
Yeah, so I saw your thing about traveling and all that. So one of the things that I've been playing with Raspberry Pis the last couple of years, and it's funny because that is all Microsoft's fault. Because what was it, 2.5 years ago at Ignite, they were giving away Raspberry Pis because you could put the Windows 10 thing on it.
Yep.
And so I got a Raspberry Pi and started playing with it, and then started coming up with all these great reasons to use Raspberry Pi. So I've got like 6 of them here at home. But one of the things that I do all the time is travel, and I travel with a whole bunch of devices. So I've got my phone, I've got my laptop, I've got my tablet, I've got my other tablet, I've got my other tablet. And then if my wife comes along with me, then we get that thing where, you get Wi-Fi for the room, but you only get, 3 or 4 devices, and it gets all and you got to sign in with every one of them. It just becomes a big pain. So I thought, I've got these Raspberry Pis sitting around. I wonder if I can use one backwards and do the stuff. And there are a bunch of devices that do this, but they've always been kind of clunky to use. But the Raspberry Pis are easy. So what I did is I took a Raspberry Pi, so it's like a $35, thing. Runs on USB power. I got a ton of those sitting around. And then turned it into an access point. So I plug it into the Ethernet in the hotel room. Yep. And it gets on the internet, and then it's got an access point, and all of my devices already know about that access point. So I plug the Raspberry Pi in, I plug the power in. I don't hook it up to anything. It doesn't need a display or anything like that. And then when I finally plug my laptop in, it automatically jumps on that Raspberry Pi's access point, and then I can VNC into the Raspberry Pi, do any kind of authentication I need to for that device. But since it's acting as a repeater, then all of my devices that jump on there have internet without doing anything ever. And so I did that for the first. I've been playing with it at home, but I was traveling last week and I tried it for the first time, and it worked really well. Had no problems really that I had to deal with. A couple of things that I learned, but first, so getting a bunch of things on without having to sign them all up and all that was nice. But the other thing is, as I travel. I've got a lot of movies and music and all that kind of stuff. And as I get individual items on the hotel wireless, they can't talk to each other. Because they block all those ports, and God bless them for it. Because if they didn't, bad guys would be in. But with this, since they're all on the same access point and I'm controlling it, my laptops and tablets can talk to each other, so I can copy files back and forth and all that. And then I did a speed test on one of my laptops, and I got like 30 megabit down, so that was certainly usable. Good enough. So a couple things that I learned is I need to be good about the power supplies and all of that, because I forgot cables and unplugged my Raspberry Pi by accident once and then lost all my internet. The cleaning folks did not think it was an explosive device and get rid of it, so that was good. But no, it was a good experience. So the next thing that I will do right now, it only works with a wired connection at the hotel. I think I can make it work with the wireless hotel internet, so that will be the next thing that I will get figured out.
Interesting. I had a Linksys device about 10 years ago that did that exact same thing.
I have devices that do it too. I actually might even have one, but they never worked well. Like, there was always clumsy getting them on the hotel internet, and the speeds were always slow. And
so. Oh yeah, I mean that was the problem right back 10 years ago, right? Hotel internet was so darn slow, it didn't matter that I'd made it wireless; it still didn't work.
Yeah. So the other thing, so I've got like this whole list of scope creep things that I want to put on this. But then the other thing I could do is I could put the VPN client on that and then just have it automatically VPN into my house if I want to do that. I've got a digital signage thing that I run at home that has like the calendar and all that kind of stuff. I could have that going on the hotel TV if I wanted. I've got some software called the Pi-hole that blocks ads and malicious things. I could run that on there so that all of my devices are protected against the malicious things that way. So there's just a bunch of other things, but
no, it's good nerdy fun. I like it.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, so that worked well. I mean, I'm traveling a little bit here and there, so I'll just keep refining it every time. And yeah.
That's right. We travel in like 2 weeks, don't we?
Yes. So so somewhat related to that, you and I talk about cord cutting a lot.
Yep.
And a month or so ago, you mentioned a deal on Roku Premier Pluses, I believe. And so I went ahead and bought one of those, got that hooked up the other night. Working like a champ. So it's got the fancier remote that does the power and the volume and all that. And really happy with that. So I've mostly, I think when we did our cord cutting thing a few months ago, we talked about the different devices. I mostly don't use the Amazon Fire TVs anymore. I'm mostly all Roku or Chromecast. And so that's why I was able to talk myself. I upgraded I had a little Roku stick on that box, and it was okay, but it didn't do all the cool stuff. I'll be honest. So I've got a Roku Ultra on our main TV, and it got a software update here a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, where for the screensaver, instead of just having the clock, it would pull pictures down like the Bing picture of the day or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that is sweet. And I put that on and wanted to put it on the other one, and the little Roku stick, for whatever reason, didn't support that. And that's honestly why I replaced it.
The the Roku, which one is that? The Ultra, right? That's one I've got. So it does like the whole aquarium scene that kind of spans back and forth. And yeah, I don't have an aquarium in my house. I just turn on the Roku and there's an aquarium.
Yep. So that aquarium, the kids love that one. That's got the little eel that hides in the castle. Super creepy. Like that thing is staring at me. I can't be in the same room with that eel because it's got nefarious intentions against me. I can tell.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah, unrelated but slightly related. Roku reports earnings this afternoon at like 4:30, and it's a big watershed moment, right? Because they went way up last earnings, and half the market's expecting them to underperform and crush the stock, and the other half is expecting it to explode and the stock to grow like crazy again. So I'm excited to see that.
Do you have an idea where you think it's going to go?
I bet on it going up.
Fair enough.
So yeah, and I bought it, back somewhere before it went up the last time. So, but I talked to somebody about it yesterday. I think they're going to outperform again from a hardware standpoint. Now, whether or not Wall Street says that's great, you sold a bunch more devices, but you didn't grow this number over here, so we're mad at you. That might be different, but I think the hardware is going to outperform what they did. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
I like the Rokus. For me, for right now, they are the cord cutting device of. I will say I was frustrated. So I was, it pulls down most of my apps from my account, but not all of them. So I had to add a couple. And some devices or some apps were smart. Like if I tried to associate my like Plex to my Plex thing, they give you a link and there's like a 4-digit thing. So you log into a laptop. Those are great. PlayStation View, it is a 12-digit number. 12-digit number. And I thought that was bad. Like I was cussing at them, and then I hooked up the Netflix app. They don't have that. You have to type in your username and password on the Roku. Oh my God. So I wish they'd all go to those links and the activate links. That would be nice.
Yeah. Yep. 100% same exact experience. I agree.
Yep. So if you haven't done that, grab a Roku. They're fun. All right. We're winding down. We got a few things left. Which of these you want to talk about here?
So we'll run G real quick. I just pop those off, but made a video this last week. Power Apps has a visual in Power BI now. So you can go to Power BI, and in your intelligent dashboard, you can embed an app so you can action on your data, right? Actionable data is what we're all about in Power BI. In Power BI. So now put a Power App on your Power BI dashboard and take action on your actionable data. So I did a video on how to set that up. PowerShell, create a scheduled task. So last week, Todd's like, you already covered this. Last week, I did a video on how to take your PowerShell, save it as PS1, and run that as a scheduled task by opening up Task Manager or Schedule Manager and creating a schedule. That was great, awesome. But people are like, why am I using a GUI? Why don't you just do that with PowerShell?
This is PowerShell.
So this week I popped off like a 5-minute video on here's how you do all that same stuff, but only with PowerShell, just to make people happy again.
Attaboy.
And then the last one was an article I wrote for Petri. So I'm doing a series for them on migrating off of SharePoint 2010, for example. But so in the first installment here is a nice little article about all of the baggage, right? We've been doing SharePoint for 15 or 20 years, depending on which version you hopped in at. And we've brought a lot of baggage along the way. So I call out things like, SharePoint Designer was free and the Fab 40 and that type of stuff. And talk about now's the inflection point, whether you're going to SharePoint on-prem or SharePoint Online, and you should go to SharePoint Online. Either way, we need to start fixing all these sins. We need to start leaving that stuff in the past. So I wrote an article on that. I thought it was okay. Somebody said it was really good. So I was like, well, you must be drunk.
They're wrong. Yeah.
But Anyway, it's part of a series I'm working on. I don't know. It's kind of exciting to write about because that's all we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that old, the phrase that we always use when we do that. Don't upgrade crap.
Exactly. Right.
So fun stuff. So I think everybody is a fan of the Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
For many reasons. And I saw an article today that Bill Gates will be doing a cameo on the Big Bang Theory. So it's like, like mixing chocolate and peanut butter. Two great things that taste great together.
I can't wait. Did that episode already play or is it coming?
No, it's sometime next month, I believe. And it was funny. So the article that I was reading listed all of the other high profile people that have done cameos on the Big Bang Theory. And it's an impressive list.
Yeah. Elon was my favorite, I think, right. When he showed up at the Thanksgiving episode and Howard, like, sup.
My favorite, I've told you the story. My favorite Elon Musk story was the guys from Silicon Valley, the HBO show, were doing something out in Hollywood, and TJ Miller, who played I can't remember his name now, the guy that owned the incubator. So he was there, and so they talk about how computer nerds are always giving them, because that startup scene is exactly like it is in Silicon Valley, and people are always trying to give them ideas. So Elon Musk is apparently a big fan of the show, and he goes up to TJ Miller. He's like, "Hey, I really like the show." And TJ's like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "So do you want some ideas for the show?" And TJ's like, "No, that's cool, fanboy, but we're good. We got." He had no idea who Elon was, and he's like, "That's cool that you want to help, but I think we're good." That is awesome.
Elon, leave me alone. I don't want to hear about you.
Yeah, I just thought he was just some random dude. Happened to have an HBO subscription, like the show.
Yeah. Unrelated news, Richard Branson stopped by and said, "Hey, I got these new business ideas to start. You don't want any? No, I'm good."
Yeah, that was funny stuff. So we got a couple more. So you've got a story here about an Alexa-controlled toilet?
Yes. And I can tell you that I instantly, as I saw the headline, thought of you. Right?
Me?
You are the one who loves to automate everything, as I think we covered in the previous segments.
I do.
So now it turns out, with about $750 worth of equipment plus a toilet.
Is that all? I have a toilet.
You can automate it so you can say, "Hey, Alexa, flush the toilet for me."
Yep. So I was talking to some HVAC folks about replacing some stuff, and HVAC folks are not normally really nerdy. And so they were giving me, different options. And I'm like, I'll be honest with you, if I can't integrate this with She Who Shall Not Be Named or IFTTT or something, I'm just not going to buy it. And the guy's like, why? I mean, like, it was just, he was like, "Oh my God." And so I'm like, well, that's just the deal. That's what I expect now. So Stacy in the chat room brought up one of my favorite things. Kohler has the whole bathroom automation thing, and two stories about that. Number one of the hotels the hotel that I stayed at in Miami last week has showers and stuff in the workout area in the spa, and they've got Kohler controls, and like in the shower they have colored light controls and music controls, and you can dial up the temperature you want your shower to be on the control. I would love that. That system is apparently quite expensive. But at CES, Kohler showed some new stuff they've got coming out, and we've talked about this on the show. Kohler has home automation controls for bathtubs, so you can, with an app or with She Who Shall Not Be Named, control the water in your bathtub. So you can be sitting downstairs watching Big Bang Theory and say, She Who Shall Not Be Named, start me a bath at 97 degrees, and then when you go upstairs, your bath is waiting for you. So I would love that. I would love all of those things.
Yeah. So it's a great example. We make fun of the guy who made an Alexa-controlled toilet, but now the hooligans in the chat room are talking about all the different things in this space they've seen. I mean, it's coming. We can make fun of automated toilets all we want. It'll be a thing.
And so Mark got that whole, She Who Shall Not Be Named, sync to 95 degrees. Yeah, I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to do that.
I thought it was 98 degrees. Isn't that who you had a crush on?
I have many crushes. The list is long. The 90s was a great time for music. I can't. So that's all good stuff. So we can end on a sad note. There was an article this last week about how if there was any doubt from anybody anywhere about the current state of Windows Phone, they're going to need to get a bigger coffin to cover all the nails that are going into the coffin of Windows Phone. But Microsoft announced this week they're not sending any more updates or notifications out for Windows Phone.
For 7.5 and for 8, right?
Yeah.
8.1 and 8.1 is business as usual and 10 is business as usual. But they made it very clear they fired all the developers and there's no one writing any more code for any of those. So
yeah, and I guess I thought that had happened years ago.
It's like InfoPath, right? It just won't go away.
I thought it had gone away. I thought that was the whole problem, that it actually never came. I thought if there was anything to go away, maybe it would still be here, but nobody used it.
Yeah. All right, you want to do some community corner, because that's going to be a popular segment. There's a lot in there.
It is. So we've reached out. So again, we'll kind of talk about this. If you are a community leader, if you've got a SharePoint Saturday event or a user group or something, and you just want some press about it, or if you're looking for speakers or whatever, give us a shout, and we'll give some of them a shout out here. In order of they're going on, these are all SharePoint Saturday events. There's a Cloud Friday in Nashville. That's May 4th, 2018. And then followed up the next day by SharePoint Saturday on May 5th in Nashville. So those are a couple of great events. And again, all these links are in the show notes. Or if you're doing the audio bit, go to toddclint.com/podcast377 for those. In Montreal, June 2nd, they're having a SharePoint Saturday, and right now they've got a call for speakers open. And Shane and I have said this before, we'll say it again, these SharePoint Saturday events are great for trying this whole public speaking thing out. And let there be no mistake, you know something that somebody else wants to know. You have something that will help somebody else. And so not you, everybody but you.
Got it.
And so if you've got this idea, if you've done a thing, SharePoint Saturday events are a great way to do that. Very supportive people. Yeah, so go do those things. So the Montreal call for speakers, and that one is June 2nd of 2018. There's a SharePoint Saturday in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that is Saturday, August 11th. And then SharePoint Saturday Vancouver, which is apparently at the bottom of the list, but it's the nearest one, that is April 14th.
That was my bad. I put it in the wrong spot. Dates,
what?
times.
Oh, my goodness. There's a very obvious pattern here. May, June, August, April.
I think that I was just hoping you were just going to skip it, because that's a different conversation.
And I spoke at a SharePoint Saturday, Vancouver, I don't know, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I forget. But all those events are great. Thanks for those folks for reaching out to us and telling us about them. Again, you can't go wrong with going to a SharePoint Saturday event. Great. And I've never put one of these on before, but it's only because they are so much work. I've just never been able to talk myself into it. So I have a lot of respect for these folks.
Yeah, kudos to them. All right, shameless promotion. So speaking of SharePoint Saturdays, looks like you're going to be in Omaha?
I'm going to be in April, in SharePoint Saturday Omaha, April 7th. I think I'm doing a session on PowerShell with Office 365, I think is the thing that they wanted. So I'll be doing that. And I will also be doing a little thing. Apparently at the beginning of the SharePoint Saturday, they're going to have everybody get together, have somebody come talk to them, get everybody all whipped into a lather. They're calling it a keynote, and I will be the guy doing that keynote. So if you want to come see me, I'll be in SharePoint Saturday, Omaha, April 7th.
Very exciting. So then we might have talked about it once or twice before, but May 21st through 23rd, we will be at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas.
Oh my goodness. I think I just peed a little. I'm very excited.
Yep. SharePoint North America Conference is coming, folks. You need to sign up early. You need to sign up often. It will be amazing. The best part of the whole thing is if you use the code YOUNG, YOUNG, you get $50 off and a hug from me, and you get to know that Todd died a little on the inside. It's like a win-win-win.
See, I heard that if you use the referral code YOUNG, all those things would happen, but then some big guy just come up and kick you in the shin at some point with no warning. Just some point while you're there, you're just going to be standing there. Some guy's going to, I'm going to just give you one right in the shin. I heard that was what happened. If you use the promo code Clint, that did not happen.
But
so I don't know.
I mean, is that Clint Eastwood? Is that...
The thing about that is there are no bad Clints. You can't go wrong. All of the Clints are cool. That's just how that is. I don't know what to say. But yeah, so you and I will be there. We're doing some sessions on stuff, and then we're doing an all-day session on Thursday. Earlier in the chat, people were asking, is SharePoint 2019 going to have this? When is this stuff? This is the place where those people will be. These are, if they don't announce things, you can ask them. Anybody's going to be there. Microsoft could not be more excited and involved in this event if they tried. So,
yeah, it will be awesome.
Yeah, Stacy making reference to my MVP vest. It's pretty sharp, isn't it, Stacy?
Mm-hmm. And then, after you get done with the SharePoint North America conference, you've enjoyed the grandioseness that is Vegas. You're broke because you either got your money stolen or you lost it at a table or both. Then there is SP TechCon Boston, right? August 26th to 29th. That will be in Boston, Massachusetts. Todd and I will also be there. Much more intimate crowd. We don't have any fancy $50 codes, but there you can, you can go to Dunkin' Donuts with us. That's one of the things we like to do when we're in Boston. So. Yeah,
so there's two things that we like to do in Boston, and you are welcome to do either of those with us. Go to Dunkin' Donuts and buy us donuts or coffee. And the other one was like, I forget the name of it. Is it Capitol Grill?
I think so.
Capitol?
Let's call it that one.
Yeah, so and it's the steakhouse right next to the Sheraton where the event is. Best steak I've ever had in my life. I could do a whole episode on how much I love that steak. So if you want to come buy Shane and I steaks, we'll do that.
Speaking of buying steaks, have you set up Paul to meet you at the wrong time for that event also?
No, we did have that tradition. But no, Paul doesn't live in Boston
anymore.
That's
right.
He moved to Pennsylvania. But I am going to email
for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you could drive in the week before. For those of you who missed it, I think it was 2 years ago, 2016. Paul Thurot's a friend of mine, and he lives in Boston. And so every time I would go out there for stuff, Paul and I would get together. And so we met at this place, and it was Paul and his wife, Stephanie, and I brought my date, Shane. Mm-hmm. And Paul and Stephanie are waiting for us, and we get all sat down and everything. And Paul's like, Todd, I've got a story for you. I'm like, Paul, let's have it. He's like, Stephanie and I, we're planning this stuff out. I look at the email you send me, and we come to the place, and we get here, and you're not here. And so I look at the email, and yep, I'm here the date that you told me to be here. And I look, and you're not here. You sent me the wrong date. So when I had emailed Paul, I had sent him the Monday before that. And so him and his wife had come in, because they lived in Dedham. They didn't live in Boston. Had come into this fancy steak place because I had given them the wrong information. But the best thing was, and this is a testament to what a jackhole Paul is. He knew that for a week, and I had talked to him in the week between those times, and he didn't say. He was waiting until he could embarrass me in person in front of him. It's like the waiter comes, he's like, yep, that's the same waiter. That was it. And the waiter comes like, yeah, this is the guy that told me to be here last week. Oh, it was terrible.
I enjoyed every moment of it. I don't know. Terrible does not mean that to me.
So, yeah, he lives in Emmaus now. I do need to reach out to him and see if he's going to be around, because he does get back to Boston to do some stuff.
Right. We are over time. Wrap this up.
All right, so we're out of here. We'll see you next week. Chat room, stick around. We're going to be there. But again, you can find everything about this, toddclint.com/podcast, and we'll see y'all next week.
Woohoo!